Every once in a while, a playoff game turns into a war, not just of talent, but of will. And in Game 2 on May 8th, 2025, four names burned themselves into the fabric of the series: Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, and Jarace Walker. This wasn't just a game, they brought fire, grit, and pure chaos. What happened that night wasn't just basketball, it was an eruption. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. This game wasn't won with highlights, it was taken with energy. Game 2 didn't start like a blowout, and that's what made it so dangerous. For the first 18 minutes, both teams felt each other out, trading jabs, but even then, you could tell something was boiling beneath the surface. Julius Randle wasn't settling. From the opening tip, he was barreling into defenders, challenging every mismatch, and when he got doubled, he made the pass early. He wasn't just playing smart, he was setting a tone. The message? We're not here to split games, but the real shift didn't come from scoring, it came from effort, and that's where McDaniels entered the picture. His stat line will never tell the full story, but if you watch the game, you know exactly when he took over every loose ball. McDaniels. Every deflection, every contested shot, every rotation, he was everywhere at once. At one point, in the second quarter, he closed out to the corner, recovered to contest a mid-range jumper, and still managed to tip the rebound to a teammate. It was one of those moments where energy becomes contagious. That's when Anthony Edwards smelled blood. There's something about Ant in these moments. He plays with a mix of joy and menace. Once he saw the Cavs start to hesitate, he pounced. A spin move into a step-back three, then a transition steal followed by a one-handed slam that didn't just bring the crowd to their feet, it silenced the opponent. Edwards wasn't just scoring, he was declaring that Game 1 was no fluke, and Game 2 would be even worse. Still, what made this performance different wasn't just the usual stars doing star things, it was the way all four of these guys connected. Jarace Walker, the least heralded of the group, gave the Wolves something they desperately needed: vertical spacing and second chances. He played with the kind of motor that made defensive rebounds feel like dunks. There was one possession late in the second quarter where Walker grabbed two offensive boards, dove on the floor, and somehow kept the ball alive long enough for Ant to reset and hit a contested jumper. That kind of sequence breaks teams, and it's not just the hustle, it's the timing. Everything these four did came at the exact moment the Cavs tried to punch back. With under a minute left in the half, the Wolves were only up 3. Cleveland had weathered the storm and looked poised to enter halftime within striking distance. But in the span of 40 seconds, Randle bullied his way to the rim for an and one. McDaniels picked off a lazy pass and found Edwards in transition, and Walker blocked a floater to end the half. Just like that, it was a 9-point lead, and the look on the Cavs' faces said it all. They didn't just go into the locker room down on the scoreboard. They went in knowing that every ounce of energy they gave was being matched and then overwhelmed. Coming out of the half, there was this moment where you could feel the tension, not just in the arena, but through the broadcast. The Cavs had two choices: respond with urgency or get steamrolled. And to their credit, they came out swinging. Darius Garland knocked down a 3, Mobley hit a tough fadeaway, and just like that, it was a 4-point game again. But here's where things started to unravel, and where the energy of Randle, Ant, McDaniels, and Walker didn't just shift the game, it started choking the life out of Cleveland's offense. It began with McDaniels. On back-to-back possessions, he hounded Mitchell full court, bodying him at every step, turning him 3 times before he crossed half court and forcing the Cavs to start their set with 14 seconds left on the clock. That one adjustment shattered their rhythm. It's the kind of thing you miss on a box score, but it's how you win playoff games. Then Randle, who had already logged heavy minutes, decided he wasn't done setting the tone. He fought for deep position, sealed Mobley, and got a quick bucket off a mismatch. Then on defense, he picked up Garland on a switch and forced him into a step-back airball. These weren't just hustle plays, they were gut punches. Anthony Edwards took that energy and weaponized it. What makes Ant special in moments like this isn't just his athleticism, it's the way he senses weakness. He doesn't wait for the play to develop. He creates the play. When the Cavs started icing pick and rolls, Ant adjusted instantly. He split the defenders, slithered into the lane, and finished over length. Then the very next trip down, he noticed Allen dropping too far in coverage, so he walked into a three and stared down the bench afterward. This wasn't confidence, it was dominance. And while the stars were going at it, Trace Jackson Davis Walker was doing what playoff teams have to have. He was doing the dirty work. The Cavs tried to punish him in pick and rolls, but Walker's lateral quickness kept guards from turning the corner, and his verticality at the rim turned layups into awkward floaters. He finished the third quarter with just 4 points and 6 boards, but ask anyone who watched, and they'll tell you he changed everything. Then came the moment where the Cavs really broke. It was late in the third. Edwards misses a pull-up jumper. Allen grabs the board, tries to start a break, but Randle strips him at half court. He hits the deck, kicks the ball to McDaniels, who finds Ant, who skies for a tomahawk dunk that sends the building into a frenzy. The camera cuts to the Cavs bench and you can see it. Heads down, eyes glazed. They'd given their best shot and were now staring down a 15-point deficit with 1 quarter left. This wasn't a run. This was a takeover. And yet, it wasn't just the scoring runs or the defensive stops. It was the relentlessness. The Wolves never stopped coming. Every time the Cavs tried to string together momentum, someone Randle, Ant McDaniels, or Walker shut it down. Whether it was a chase-down block, a perfectly timed trap, or just an offensive rebound ripped away from 2 defenders, these 4 refused to let the moment slip at one point. Early in the fourth, Cleveland tried to shift their coverage, trapping Edwards and daring someone else to beat them. But Minnesota didn't flinch. Randle took the short roll, bullied his way into the paint, and kicked it out to McDaniels in the corner splash. Next possession, they ran a similar action, and this time, Walker slipped the screen, caught the ball in stride, and threw down a dunk that sent the Wolves' bench into hysterics. The Cavs were cooked, and the thing is, there were still 9 minutes left, but at that point, the rest of the game became inevitable. Not because of a talent gap, not because of bad shooting, but because the Wolves' core brought the energy from start to finish, and Cleveland simply couldn't match it. The final quarter didn't feel like a battle anymore. It felt like a message. And that message was loud and clear. The Wolves aren't just here to compete. They're here to control. Because when a game starts slipping through your opponent's fingers, most teams ease off the gas just a little. They run clock. They play safe. They avoid mistakes, Minnesota. They did the opposite. It started with the defense again. The Cavs, desperate to claw back, came out with a high pick and roll trying to free up Mitchell. But McDaniels was waiting. He ducked under the screen, chased over the top, and baited Mitchell into a wild runner. No help needed, no rotation breakdown, just one guy locking down one of the league's best scorers in isolation. That's what playoff basketball is about, and McDaniels owned it. Then on the next trip, the Wolves flipped the script. Instead of slowing things down, they pushed the pace. Edwards grabs the rebound, takes off like a missile, and finds Randle trailing for a deep three bang that made it a 19-point lead with just under 8 minutes to go. Game over. Right, not quite. Because the Wolves weren't finished, Anthony Edwards continued putting his stamp on the game not with volume scoring, but with control. He orchestrated every half-court possession like a veteran quarterback. If the Cavs switched, he attacked the mismatch. If they hedged, he made the pass early. At one point, Cleveland sent a double team before he even dribbled, and he calmly rotated the ball around until Walker had a free runway to the rim. And speaking of Walker, he had one sequence that summed up the entire game. With 5 minutes to go, the Wolves were up by 16. The Cavs, clinging to any hope, tried to force a turnover in the backcourt. But instead, the Wolves broke the press, kicked it to Walker at the top of the arc, and he didn't hesitate. He exploded to the basket and crammed a one-handed dunk through 2 defenders. Timeout Cleveland. That wasn't just a highlight, that was a dagger. And what made it even more devastating was the body language. While the Cavs bench sat stunned, the Wolves were energized, animated, talking to each other, feeding off every possession like it was still the first quarter. Edwards and Randle chest-bumped at half-court. McDaniels slapped the floor on defense. Walker pounded his chest after a rebound in traffic. These weren't random celebrations. This was a group telling the league, "We don't take our foot off your throat." With 3 minutes left, the Cavs emptied the bench. Game 2 was a wrap, and the Wolves, they walked off the floor with the same intensity they started with. No dancing, no showboating, just business, because deep down, they knew this wasn't just